Not looking good for the market. In fact, now 420 points gone on the Sensex and the Nifty has seen a 120-point cut. Couple of these stocks do deserve mention. After the big rally we saw in real estate last week, there's selling pressure that's emerging right now. So names like DLF are at the low point, down almost about 4%. Big volumes getting traded on DLF as we speak, about 40 lakh shares at the moment on the downside. And a couple of others as well, like Dilip Buildcon, KEC International. You know, these are stocks that had huge moves last week, all coming in for profit taking. So suffice to say that the pre-election rally that we've seen so far has gotten arrested just for the moment, and a lot of these stocks are seeing money being taken out. But let's move to the macros now. The former National Statistics Commission member Mohanan says that national statistics are a public good and should not be made a tool of politics. In an exclusive piece to CNBC TV 18, Mohanan says silence of CSO and NSSO points to their subordination to political forces. Lata has all the details for us. Lata.
Well, the important point is we know the backdrop. There have been 108 economists who have questioned two specific points on the GDP back series and lack of release of the employment data, and that was replied to by 131 CAs saying that all is well with the economy, and these economists have a political reason to write their note. Now, this is straight from the horse's mouth. This is P.C. Mohanan, who was the acting chairman of the National Statistics Commission and one of the two members, both of whom resigned on January 28th. So this is actually from the horse's mouth. And the important point is Mr. Mohanan has written a piece for CNBCTV18.com. And all I'm doing to you is paraphrasing what he has written on and for our website. Mr. Mohanan says that, actually in his letter, he says we should not make national statistics, whether it is GDP or any other data, a tool of politics because they are a public good. And then let me analyze the two things that he points out. First, on the jobs data. He says the economists have questioned why the NSSO labour survey was not made public. So they're questioning the NSSO. And the question became political because a leaked version of that report said that unemployment in 2017, according to the NSSO survey, was a 45-year high. Now, what Mohanan points out is that the NSSO probably did not release the data because of leading loaded questions asked by none other than the Prime Minister himself. He quotes from that entire interview that Hindustan Times had with the Prime Minister, where the Prime Minister asks, you know, we have given 12 crore loans to Mudra people. Did not that create jobs? There has been a record increase in rural housing. Did not that create jobs? So Mohanan says that, you know, when clean data is available, if you counter it with narrative, obviously the NSSO gets worried and feels cowed down and does not release the data. So he says the silence of the NSSO actually points to its subordination to the government. Then he goes on to the GDP data. The revision of the GDP data from the 2004-2005 base to the 2011-12 base, he says was done with the best of international standards. An expert body by the United Nations has, with the help of the United Nations, had put down the standards of this conversion. He says the revised data did not, had a huge amount of data from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which starts only from 2010. So when you backcast the series, there was an actual absence of data for those companies. The back series was questioned for two reasons. One, because it was released by the Niti Aayog. Now, the Niti Aayog has no business releasing the CSO's data. That should be released always by the CSO itself. And secondly, the back series goes on to the, when the current opposition was in power. And the way in which the backcast data came, it was at variance with what some of the National Statistical Commission members themselves had done. Their calculation was very different from what ultimately came from the CSO and was presented by the Niti Aayog. And that is why questions came up as to why is the data so different from what the NSC had calculated. And therefore, the CSO has to come out and answer those questions. The economists are also asking why is the GDP so high during the demonetization year. This could be a technical issue. The CSO needs to speak out, is what he's saying. So Basically, Mohanan is asking for three things. One, he is asking for legal basis for the National Statistics Commission. He said the Rangarajan Committee had said that there should be an NSC with statutory legal basis. Today, that is not there. The NSC was just appointed, but it depended on the Ministry for Administrative Help. And therefore, no one took it seriously. It gets sidelined when major statistics decisions are announced or taken. He says that should change by giving the NSC legal status. And secondly, currently, the CSO should engage with the economists and clear their doubts. Otherwise, we are going to have a major problem with something as important as national statistics becoming a tool of politics.
All right, thanks so much, Lata, for getting us all those details. Of course, important clarifications that are coming in, and those will be also political hot potatoes in the upcoming elections.
I just want to point out that it is very important that the entire letter is available on the CNBC TV18 website, because Mr. Mohanan has written for the website.
Okay. And yes, as Lata was pointing out, remember, you can catch the full piece by PC Mohanan by logging on to our website, cnbctv18.com. So do tune into that and watch that as well.
Okay, you can log in to cnbctv18.com. But on to some news from the court corner. The Supreme Court has directed the Election Commission to file an affidavit by the 28th of March on whether insurmountable difficulty will be caused if the VVPAT sample surveys need to be extended. At the CNBC TV18 election town hall, Shireen Bhan quizzed the Election Commissioner Ashok Lavasa on the same. Hear out what he had to say.
Election Commission itself believes in continuously improving things, just as I mentioned. So, for example, the VVPAT itself is being employed throughout the country for the first time. All EVMs will be connected with VVPAT during these elections. So, the elections, the state elections in which VVPATs have been used, we have done random sampling of 1,500 VVPATs.
Yeah.
And as was mentioned by Mr. Sampath, that so far, not even in one case, there has been any mismatch found. But let me tell you one more thing. That when you go and cast your vote, the slip, your voting slip gets printed in so that you can verify that the number on which I press the button is the number which is recorded. There is a provision under the law that if you find that the slip is showing something else, you can make a complaint.
Yeah.
And then you will be given a chance. There is a protocol for that. Do you know that so far, in none of the elections, have we received any complaint from anyone? We got only one complaint, and that turned out to be false.
Okay. But, sir, just on the issue of the random verifications, 50% is the demand that the opposition parties have made. I know that this is a matter that the Statistical Institute and the TEC are looking into also. Any thoughts on this?
See, we have received different suggestions, including the one that 50% should be counted. Earlier, there is a group of people who said 30% should be counted. When we had a consultation with various political parties, everybody came up with a different number. So we thought that this business of sampling should be entrusted to a professional body.
Okay.
And this work was given to the Indian Statistical Institute. They've had wide-ranging consultations. They have also talked to other experts. They have given their report to us on Friday. So that report will be considered.
So what says, sir?
No, we are yet to examine because we got it on Friday.
Okay.
Today is Monday.
Okay.
But as I said, that Election Commission respects the views of experts.
Okay.
Because they are the people who are supposed to know the technicalities and what are internationally acceptable standards.
All right, with that, we'll slip into a short breather on the show. But up next, former managing director of McKinsey, Rajat Gupta, says that he is innocent and is not an insider trader. Now, that's an exclusive that's coming in on the other side.